Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding the Mishnah Berurah Chelik Aleph and we will be learning today Yirtzeh Hashem Daf Tes Vav Amid Beis. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Tzitzis and we pick up on Tes Vav Amid Aleph. We are in the midst of Siman Ches Sif Yud Gimel. So, in the opening of Sif Yud Gimel, the Mechaber discussed the following case. He discussed the case of somebody who puts on a talis cotton. He makes a berachah on the talis cotton, and then he wants to go to shul and he wants to put on a talis gadol. So the Mechaber told us, although he already made a bracha on the talis cotton, he has to make another bracha on the talis gadol. So let's recap the rules that we need in order to analyze this case. We have learned previously that it is possible to cover multiple four-cornered garments, multiple begadim that have dalit kanfais and tzitzis with one bracha. But what are the ingredients that you need? When you make the bracha, you have to have das, that the bracha is going to cover multiple begadim. So you have to have in mind, I'm making this bracha, and I'm going to put on beged number 1, beged number 2, beged number 3. And we learned that das that you have to have beferish das. You have to have specific das that you're covering these multiple garments, these multiple begadim with one bracha. And we also learned that it has to be that you don't make a hefsek between putting on beged number 1, beged number 2, and beged number 3. So you make one bracha with kavanah that you're covering multiple garments, and then you put on each garment one right after the other without making a hefsek. So, in this case here in Sif Yud Gimel, somebody got up in the morning, he put on a talis cotton. When he made the bracha over the talis cotton, he had das, that he wants to cover the talis gadol as well. And then, after putting on the talis cotton and making the bracha on the talis cotton, he seemingly was not mafsik. He didn't speak, and maybe the shul is right next door, so he made a bracha, put on the talis cotton, finished getting dressed, went downstairs, got his hat and jacket, didn't say hello to anybody, he didn't speak, he went straight to shul, picked up his talis zekel, took up the talis gadol. He wants to put on the talis gadol on the smach. He wants to rely on the earlier bracha that he made on the talis cotton. Says the Mechaber, no, you can't do that. And the Mechaber said, why can't you do it? The Mechaber said, because halachah mi beisai lepeis hakneses chashiva hefsek. The traveling from his house to the Beis HaKnesses, that constitutes a hefsek. And we discussed yesterday in the Mishnah Berurah precisely what is the hefsek. It's possible that the Mechaber holds that halicha alone, just walking around, it could be that constitutes a hefsek. The Mishnah Berurah said that the achronim, they agree with the psak of the Mechaber. They agree that you have to make a new bracha on the talis gadol, but they say that it's not just the halicha, just the walking, that's the hefsek. It's the shinui mokum. What's the shinui mokum? You made a bracha in the house, and now you left the house. Leaving the house constitutes a shinui mokum, and shinui mokum is a hefsek. The same way we find by food, you make a sha'akal on a glass of water, and then you leave the house, that's a shinui mokum, now you would need another bracha. So too, you made a bracha on the talis cotton, and then you left the house, that's a shinui mokum. The bracha can no longer go on the talis gadol. And we pointed out that the shinui mokum is not only because you left the house and went into the shul. No, just leaving the house constitutes a shinui mokum. And therefore, if you leave the house and go right back into the house to put on the talis gadol, you still need a new bracha, because leaving the house was a shinui mokum. So that's what we saw yesterday. Now, we go to the last word on the second line from the bottom, Tesvav Amud Aleph in the Shulchan Aruch, where the Mechaber tweaks the case a little bit. Says the Mechaber like this: V'im mispalel b'soich beisoi. Let's say he's going to daven in his house. So he woke up in the morning in his bedroom, he took his talis cotton, he made a bracha on the talis cotton, and he put on the talis cotton, and he had das that he wants the bracha to go on the talis gadol as well. Now in this case, he doesn't have to leave the house to go to shul. He's davening at home, and his talis is at home. So therefore, says the Mechaber, Im hayadaito mitchila gamal talis gadol, if indeed he had kavanah when he made the bracha on the talis cotton, that the bracha should cover the talis gadol as well. So in this case, he made a bracha with intent that it should cover multiple begadim. V'lo hifsik bein tayim, and he didn't make a hefsik. So he didn't take a very long time. He didn't take a significant amount of time between putting on the talis cotton and putting on the talis gadol. And he wasn't mafsik besicha. He didn't speak. So the Mechaber actually spells that out. V'lo hifsik bein tayim besicha, ay b'dvarim acherim. He didn't make a hefsik either through speech or anything else. In that case, says the Mechaber, Einoi tzarech lachzor levarich. Then indeed, he does not have to make another bracha. Because, again, he made a bracha with kavanah that it should cover multiple begadim, and he did not have a hefsik between the talis cotton and the talis gadol. There was no shina makam, there was no sicha, there was no hesech hadas. The time delay between the talis cotton and the talis gadol was short. It wasn't a significant amount of time. So, one bracha could cover the talis cotton and the talis gadol. Says the Mishnah Berurah back on Tezvav, Amen Aleph, bottom line, Ois cotton lamit hey, besoich beisoy. Now, the Mechaber said, in this case, he's davening in the house. So, the Mishnah Berurah is medayik, and the Mishnah Berurah says, Afilu ima talis cotton lavash becheder zeh, even if he made the bracha and put on the talis cotton in one room. So like the case that I gave you, he woke up in the morning and he put on the talis cotton in his bedroom. Talis gadol becheder acher, and now he's putting on the talis gadol in a different room. He's going to daven in the dining room or in the study. So he made the bracha and put on the talis cotton in one room, and then he went to another room and he's putting on the talis gadol in the other room. It's still okay. He can still cover it with one bracha. Why? Because shinui makayim is only if you leave the house. Now, the words of the Chavetz Chaim over here are very interesting. And it's possible, very easy, it would be very easy to learn wrong pshat in this Chavetz Chaim. Says the Chavetz Chaim like this. Going from one room to another room does not constitute a shina makam. Kevan dahaya daitoi lozeh. Since he had das when he made the bracha that he was going from one room to another room. In other words, the person got up in the morning and he made a bracha on the talis cotton in his bedroom. Now he knows full well that he's not davening in his bedroom. He knows that he's davening downstairs in the study or in the dining room. So when he made the bracha on the talis cotton, he had das that the bracha should go on the talis cotton that he's putting on in the bedroom and the talis gadol that he's putting on in the study or in the dining room. Therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, although we said that if you make the bracha on the talis cotton and then you leave the house to go to shul, even kavanah doesn't help, because in that case you have a shina makayim, and the shina makayim have a hefsik, and therefore you're going to have to make a new bracha on the talis gadol. Over here, going from the bedroom to the dining room does not constitute a shina makayim. Why? And he puts in the words, Kevan dahaya daitai lozeh, since he had das, that he's going from one room to another room. Now, this is very interesting, because again, I want to point out that the Mishnah Berurah is combining several different factors over here. In other words, we learned previously, make a bracha on the talis cotton, leave the house and go to shul, and put on a talis gadol, you must make a new bracha. Even though you had das to cover the talis gadol together with the bracha on the talis cotton. Doesn't help. Why doesn't it help? Because of shinui makam. What's the shinui makam? Leaving the house. Today's case, he put on the talis cotton and made a bracha in the bedroom. He's leaving the bedroom, and he's going and he's putting on a talis gadol in the dining room or in the study. In that case, the Mechaber says it's okay. One bracha covers both. Now, Obviously, it has to be that when he made the bracha on the talis cotton, he had das to cover the talis gadol, right? Because that's one of the primary ingredients you need to cover multiple begadim with one bracha. You need das, that it should go on both begadim. So he had das to cover the talis gadol. Ay shinui makom. He left the bedroom and he went to the dining room. So the Mishnah Berurah could have just said that the shinui makom loy have a mecheder lecheder. Period. Chavetz Chaim could have said that going from one room to another room does not constitute a shinui makom. That's not what the Mishnah Berurah says. The Mishnah Berurah says the shinui makom loy have a mecheder lecheder. It does not constitute a shinui makom going from one room to another room. Why? Because he had das for it. He had das for what? What does the Mishnah Berurah mean? Because he had das to cover the talis gadol with the bracha on the talis cotton? No, he doesn't mean that. He doesn't mean that. That doesn't make it not a shinui makom. In the case of leaving the house, it is a shinui makom. Even though you had das when you made the bracha on the talis cotton that it should cover the talis gadol. So that's not what the Mishnah Berurah means. What the Mishnah Berurah means is going from one room to another room is not a shinui makom because he had das to go from one room to the other room. Okay, so how about if he had das to go from the house to the shul? If das to change the makom makes that it's not a shinui makom, could you leave the house because you had das? No. Leaving the house constitutes a shinui makom, even if you had das when you made the bracha on the talis cotton. I had das, I'm going to shul to put on the talis gadol. It's still a shinui makom. Leaving the house is a shinui makom, we don't care what your das is. But going from one room to another room within the same house, that's not a shinui makom if you had das when you made the bracha that you're going from one room to another room. Now, how do I know that that's what the Mishnah Berurah means? Because of what the Mishnah Berurah says next. Ukidlekaman besimin reish ayin gimel soif sif aleph. The Mishnah Berurah sends us to Siman reish ayin gimel. What's Siman reish ayin gimel talking about? Kiddush b'makom suda. And the question over there is, somebody made kiddush in one room in the house, and he's going to eat in the next room in the house. And over there, what is said is that it's okay, it's still considered kiddush b'makom suda, since you had das when you made kiddush, that you're eating in the next room, and since it's within one house, it's still kiddush b'makom suda. So too over here, what the Mishnah Berurah means is, going from the house, leaving the house to go to shul, that's always a shinui makom. We don't care what your das was. But if you had das when you made the bracha to go from one room to another room within the same house, that's not a shinui makom, and you could cover the talis gadol with the same bracha. So to recap, we had two cases over here. Case number one, person got up in the morning, made a bracha on the talis cotton. He had das that the bracha on the talis cotton should cover the talis gadol in shul. He wasn't mafsik between putting on the talis cotton and going to shul or anything else. Doesn't matter, he has to make a new bracha on the talis gadol. Why? Because leaving the house constitutes a shinui makom. And that's true even if when you made the bracha in the house, you had das that you're going to shul. Doesn't matter. You left the house, that's a shinui makom. Case number two, you're davening at home. You put on the talis cotton in your bedroom, you made a bracha, and you had das that the bracha on the talis cotton should cover the talis gadol in the study or in the dining room. Then, if you weren't mafsik, you could cover the talis gadol with the same bracha, because going from one room to another room does not constitute a shinui makom as long as you had das when you made the bracha that you're going from one room to another room. Continues the Chavetz Chaim, Umasha Kasav Besicha, when the Mishnah Berurah, when the Mechaber said that this is okay as long as you weren't mafsik besicha with speech. What does that mean? Huafilu teva achas. That means even the utterance of one word. We learned previously, earlier in the Siman, in Sif Yud Beis, we learned about what happens if you're mafsik between putting on one beged and putting on another beged, and you speak. So we had a machlokes acharayim, we had a machlokes amongst the paiskim. Some paiskim say that sicha, if it's sicha and it's not l'tzarech levisha, that's a hefsek. Other acharayim say it's not a hefsek. The Mishnah Berurah said, halachah l'maisa, if you are mafsik between one garment and another, besicha, halachah l'maisa, he said, we should not make another bracha. Vim diber ein chayzer u'mavarech. Okay. Now we go to Sif Yodalad, top line in the Shulchan Aruch Tesvav Amid Beis. Says the Mechaber, Im pashat talisai. If you made a bracha on your talis and you put it on, and then later for whatever reason you took your talis off, Im pashat talisai, says the Mechaber, afilu hayadaitoi lachzar ulehisateif by miyad. Even if when you took off your talis, your das was that you're going to put it right back on. So you had some need to take off your talis. You took off your talis, but you had das when you took it off. I'm putting it back on in a minute. In pasha talisai, afilu ayadaita lachzar l'satif by miyad. Even if you had das that you're putting it right back on, and you're going to put it right back on, says the Mechaber, tzarich levarech kesheyachzar v'yis atif by. You need to make a new bracha when you go to put it on again. Now we're going to see three different shitas in this halacha. Today we're going to learn two shitas. Tomorrow we're going to learn the third shita. So the Mechaber shita over here is shita number one. Again, what happened? You made a bracha, you put on a talis. Then for some reason you had to take your talis off. Now, when you took your talis off, you had in mind, I'm taking it off, but I'm going to put it right back on. And then you went to put it right back on. According to the Mechaber, you have to make another bracha. Says the Mishnah Berurah, he's cutting limud vav. Tzarich levarech. Afilu nishar olav talis cotton. So one thing that the Mechaber wants to point out right away, we're going to see that one of the factors that the poskim take into consideration when they consider and they analyze this shaila is, are you wearing a talis cotton? Why does that make a difference? Well, you could see logically, maybe somebody would say, I made a bracha on the talis gadol, I was wearing the talis gadol, I took it off, and I had das that I'm going to put it right back on. Shaila is, do I have to make another bracha? Why should you have to make another bracha? Well, the reason you should have to make another bracha is because you made a bracha, you put on a talis. When you took the talis off, az da mitzvasai, the mitzvah's over. You took off the talis, you're not doing the mitzvah anymore. So you want to put it back on, that's doing another mitzvah. You're doing a new mitzvah. So you got to make a new bracha. That would be the logic of why you have to make a new bracha when you want to put the talis back on. But let's say you're still wearing a talis cotton. You were wearing a talis cotton before you took the talis off. You're wearing a talis cotton after you took the talis off. And you're still wearing a talis cotton after you put the talis back on. In a sense, you could make an argument that the mitzvah never vanished. Even though it's true that you took off the talis gadol, but you were still always being Isaac in the mitzvah of tzitzits. You were always wearing a talis cotton. So maybe that's an argument to say that you're still active in the mitzvah, and therefore you don't have to make another mitzvah. Says the Chavetz Chaim that according to the shita of the Mechaber, the halachah that the Mechaber says, when the Mechaber paskins that you have to make a new bracha when you put the talis back on, that's even if you're still wearing a talis cotton. Afilu nishar alav talis cotton. Va'afilu im tekif nisatif by, and the psak of the Mechaber holds true, even if you immediately go to put the talis back on. V'lo shina mekaymai klal bein tayim. And you didn't make any kind of shina makam at all. So let's picture this, okay? Fellow gets up in the morning, he gets dressed, he puts on a talis cotton. He comes to shul, he takes out his talis, he makes a big bracha lehisatif patzitzis, he puts on his talis gadol. Then in the middle of davening, he gets really hot and sweaty. And he says, I got to cool down for a minute, so I'm going to take off my talis gadol. He goes to take it off, and he says, but I have das. I'm just taking it off for 30 seconds, and I'm putting it right back on. He takes it off, and he doesn't even step dalet amas. He doesn't even step away beis amas. He stands exactly where he was. He takes off his talis for 30 seconds. Now he wants to put it back on. Says the Mechaber, he's got to make a new bracha. He's got to make a new bracha. Why? Because when you took off the talis, you ended your performance of the mitzvah. You want to put the talis back on, you're doing a new mitzvah. So you got to make a new bracha. Let's see it inside in the Mishnah Berurah. Why does he have to make a new bracha? Dahapshita gufa hefsiku bazeh. Because removing the talis, the act of removing the talis, is a hefsik. Between, you made a bracha earlier, you were wearing a talis gadol, you took off the talis gadol, that is now a hefsik. You want to put it back on, you got to make a new bracha. He sends us back to Ois Katan Lamed Aleph that we learned yesterday. Why is he sending us back to Ois Katan Lamed Aleph? Because in Ois Katan Lamed Aleph we had a little bit of a different shaila. In Ois Katan Lamed Aleph the shaila was like this. Somebody made a bracha and he had das that the bracha should cover multiple begadim. He had beferish das that the bracha should cover 3 begadim. He put on beged number 1. Now he wants to go put on beged number 2. Okay, if he doesn't make any hefsik, so he puts on beged number 2, and beged number 2 is covered by the bracha that he made on beged, the first bracha, the bracha that he made, intending for beged number 1, beged number 2, and beged number 3. He had das, he didn't make a hefsik, he could put on all 3 begadim with 1 bracha. The shaila that we had was, what happens if he had kavanah for 3 begadim? He made the bracha, he put on the first beged, but now, before he puts on beged number 2, he takes off beged number 1. The Mechaber said, in that case, the Mechaber didn't. I'm sorry, the Mechaber actually didn't address that shaila. It was only the Ramah. Excuse me. I'm sorry. Yes, the Ramah said, if you took off the first beged before you put on the second beged, the Ramah said, over there, the removal of the first beged is a hefsik. So again, person made a bracha, he had beferish das on 3 begadim. So really, he could put on all 3 begadim covered by 1 bracha. But the problem that the Ramah says is, if you put on the first beged and then you removed the first beged before you put on the second beged, then the removal of the first beged is a hefsik, and now you need a new bracha. So again, the removal is a hefsik. Over here, the Mechaber says over here that you took off your talis in middle of davening. The removal is a hefsik. The removal is a hefsik. Now, back over there in Ois Katan Lamed Aleph, the Mishnah Berurah told us that the Achronim are chaylik on the Ramah in Sif Yud Beis. The Ramah said you wanted to cover 3 begadim, but you took off beged number 1 before you put on beged number 2. The Ramah said the removal of beged number 1 is a hefsik. Sounds like the halachah that we're learning today. But the Achronim disagree with the psak of the Ramah back in Sif Yud Beis. The Achronim paskin that the removal of beged number 1 is not a hefsik. So the problem that the Mishnah Berurah addressed in Ois Katan Lamed Aleph is, he wanted to know, is there a stira between the psak of the Achronim in Sif Yud Beis and the psak of the Mechaber over here? Again, in Sif Yud Beis, the Achronim paskin, you made 1 bracha to cover 3 begadim. You put on beged number 1, and now before you put on beged number 2, you remove beged number 1. The Achronim paskin that removing beged number 1 is not a hefsik. You could still put on beged number 2, relying on the bracha that you made over beged number 1, beged number 2, and beged number 3. So the removal of beged number 1 is not a hefsik. Over here, the Mechaber says, you put on your talis, you made a bracha on your talis, and now you removed it. You want to put it back on, you got to make a new bracha. Why? Because the removal of the talis is a hefsik. So how come this removal is a hefsik and that removal is not a hefsik? So the Mishnah Berurah explained in Ois Katan Lamed Aleph that there's a critical difference between the scenario in Sif Yud Beis and the scenario that we're learning here. The scenario in Sif Yud Beis was a person made a bracha and he had intent to put on 3 begadim. But you know what he did? He put on beged number 1 and then he removed it. And then he went to put on beged number 2. Over there, the Achronim say that the removal of beged number 1 is not a hefsik. You know why? Because Why should it be a hefsek? His das was, what was the das of the person when he made the bracha? Over here, he had das on beged number 1. He had das on beged number 2. He had das on beged number 3. He put on beged number 1. Now he's going to put on beged number 2. The fact that he took off beged number 1, so what? How does that affect beged number 2? The bracha was made al das beged number 2. So the fact that he took off beged number 1, so what? Who cares? You made a bracha, you had in das beged number 1, you put it on. Okay, so you took it off, who cares? Now I'm going to put on beged number 2. When I made the bracha, I had das on beged number 2. So what's the problem? Over here in today's scenario, it's different. When this person came to shul and he made a bracha on his talis gadol, what was his kavanah? Was his kavanah that he's going to put on the talis gadol and then take it off and then put it on again? No, that wasn't his kavanah. His kavanah was, I'm putting on a talis gadol. So okay, you made a bracha, you put on a talis gadol. Now you took it off, you ended the mitzvah. Now you want to put it on again, you need a new bracha. You didn't have das when you made the bracha in the beginning of davening. You didn't have das that bracha should cover putting on the talis gadol a second time. You had das to put on the talis gadol once. Then you got hot and you decided you needed to take it off. So you took it off, the mitzvah's over. You want to put it on again, new mitzvah, new bracha. Masha'enkein, in yesterday's share, you made a bracha al das beged number 1, beged number 2, beged number 3. So I don't care if you took off beged number 1. So that's why the Mishnah Berurah sends us back to Ois Cotton Lamed Aleph over here. Okay. So that was the shita of the mechaber. Again, the shita of the mechaber is you made a bracha on your talis gadol, you put on your talis gadol, then you got hot and you had to take your talis gadol off. When you took it off, you had das on putting it right back on. Still, the mechaber says you got to make a new bracha when you want to put it on. Why? Because when you took it off, you ended the mitzvah. You ended the mitzvah, you want to put it back on, you're doing a new mitzvah, you got to make a new bracha. That's the sheet of the mechaber. Now let's go to the Ramah, second line down near the end of the line. It says the Ramah, Hagah, v'yesh omrim she'ein mevarchin. There are those that say that no, you do not make a new bracha. Im haya daitay laksar ulehisatif boy. In the mechaber's case, where you took off the talis with das that you're going to put it right back on, says the Ramah to the Yesh Omrim, and he brings this down from the Ogur, that no, you don't make a new bracha. Okay, let's see the Mishnah Berurah's Katan Lamed Zayin. She'ein mevarchin. And this is true. Afilu in be'es hafshita loy nishar alav talis katan. This is true. Remember, we added that factor of the talis katan. This is true. The Ogur says, and this is the sheet of the Ramah, that you don't make a new bracha when you put the talis gadol back on, and that remains true even if you're not wearing a talis katan. So when you took the talis gadol off, you were completely devoid of the mitzvah of tzitzis. Still, when you go to put the talis gadol back on, you do not make another bracha, and continues the Mishnah Berurah, v'chein pasko achronim. And that's the way the achronim paskin. What's the reason? Says the Mishnah Berurah, v'tam. The rationale for this is, v'tam hayesh omrimu, the reasoning of the Ogur is, tekevan de be'es hapshita, hayadaitoi tekef lalav shai, since when you took the talis off, you had in mind that you're going to put it right back on. V'chein asa, and indeed that's what you did. Loy hevi hapshita hefsek. The act of taking off the talis is not a hefsek. Now the Chavetz Chaim, for whatever reason, didn't really explain why. In other words, again, the shita of the mechaber seems to be, you took the talis gadol off, you had kavanah that you're going to put it right back on. The mechaber said, I don't care. When you took off the talis, you ended the mitzvah. You ended the mitzvah. You ended the mitzvah. You want to put the talis back on. You're doing a new mitzvah. You got to make a new bracha. That's the sheet of the mechaber. And that seems very easy to explain and very easy to understand. The V'yesh Omrim brought down by the Ramah, the sheet of the Ogur, is no. You took off the talis, but since you had in mind when you took it off that you're going to put it right back on. And since indeed that is what you did, as a matter of fact, you did put it right back on, so then the act of taking it off does not constitute a hefsek. But the Chofetz Chaim doesn't explain why it's not a hefsek. The sheet of the Mechaber, we understand. It's a hefsek because you ended the mitzvah. Why, according to the Agur, is taking off the talis not a hefsek? So I found, I think, the answer to this, interestingly enough, in a Rabbi Kiva Eger, in Yeridea Siman Reish Pei Vav, in Hilchas Mezuzah, when the Mechaber is discussing different scenarios where somebody went to put on one mezuzah, then he has to put on another mezuzah. What constitutes a hefsek? What does not constitute a hefsek? So there's a shach over there in Hilchas Mezuzah, and there's a Rabbi Kiva Eger who has a comment on the shach, and the comment Rabbi Kiva Eger makes on the shach plays in to this shita of the Agur over here, and over there the Rabbi Kiva Eger says that since when you took the talis off, your das was that you're going to put it right back on, that constitutes that you never took it off. It's as if you never took it off. When you take off a talis, having das that you're putting it right back on, and indeed that's what you do, you put it right back on, that's not called taking your talis off. I'm trying to kind of ferret out the logic of it, and I could see, somebody gets dressed and he has to take off his shirt for a second because something is caught or whatever it is, and he feels something. Maybe there was something inside his shirt that it's scratching him, so he takes off his shirt for a minute and he puts his shirt right back on. Is that called that he took off his shirt? Would you say he got undressed? No, he didn't get undressed. He just had to take off his shirt for a minute to put it right back on. So it's not that the mitzvah went away. It's not that you decided that you're finished with the mitzvah and you took the talis off and the mitzvah ended. No, you got hot for a minute. So you just took the talis off for a minute, you put it right back on. That does not constitute that the mitzvah is gone. I think those are the best words that I could put into it. But, continues the Chofetz Chaim, continues the Chofetz Chaim, the Mishnah Berurah goes even further. He says, according to the Ramah, even if you took off the talis, but you took it off with das, that you're putting it right back on, and now you made a shinui makom. Maybe you took off the talis to go to the Beis HaKisei. Now, in days of old, to go to the Beis HaKisei, you had to leave the shul, right? The Beis HaKisei wasn't in the shul. The Beis HaKisei was outdoors. It was outside. Maybe an outhouse. It was another building. So if you took off the talis with das, you're going to put it right back on. But in the meantime, you made a shinui makom because you went outside. That does not constitute a hefsek. Kevin shechazar the lavash oisoi talis atzmai. And again, this is fascinating. We're going back to what we opened the shir with in what makes a shinui makom and what does not make a shinui makom. Remember, we learned yesterday, we mentioned it at the beginning of the shir. You make a berachah in your house on the talis cotton, and you have das that the berachah should go on the talis cotton, and it should go on the talis gadol that you're going to put on in shul. The Mechaber said it doesn't work. Why? Because the minute you step outside of your house, you made a shinui makom. You made a shinui makom, the berachah can no longer cover the talis gadol. Over here says the Chofetz Chaim, you made a berachah on your talis gadol. In middle of davening, you have to go to the Beis HaKisei. You took off your talis, and your das is, I'm going to the Beis HaKisei, I'm coming right back, I'm putting it right back on. Says the Yesh Omrim, says the Haggah, you don't have to make another bracha. Says the Chofetz Chaim, you don't have to make another bracha, even if you leave the shul. Even if you go out, you leave the shul to go to the Beis HaKisei. I shinui makom. No, it's not a shinui makom. Why isn't it a shinui makom? I left the shul. Yesterday was a shinui makom when I left the house. How come now it's not a shinui makom when I leave the shul? Says the Chofetz Chaim, you know why it's not a shinui makom? Fascinating. It's not a shinui makom. Kevon shechazar v'lavash oisoi talis atzmoi. The reason it's not a shinui makom is because there's a great difference between here and yesterday's case when you left the house to go to shul. In yesterday's case, when you left the house to go to shul, what did you try to do? You tried to make a berachah on a talis cotton, and now you want that berachah to go onto an additional levisha. You made a berachah, you put on a talis cotton. That's levisha number one. Now you want that berachah should also allow you to do a second levisha in shul. But between levisha number one and levisha number two, between beged number one, not levisha, between beged number one and beged number two, you're going to have a shina makam. Oh, that you can't do. You want to extend the bracha onto a haisafa of the Mishnah, of the mitzvah. You want to extend the bracha not only to cover the donning of one beged of tzitzits, you want to extend the bracha to cover the donning of a second beged that has tzitzits. You can't do that if there's a shina makim in between. But that's not what we're doing here today. What we're doing here today is I made a bracha on the talis gadol. Now I had to take the talis gadol off because I had to go to the Beis HaKisei. I'm not trying to stretch the bracha that I made on the talis gadol onto another beged. I'm not trying to extend it onto an additional mitzvah. All I'm trying to do is say that I'm continuing the same mitzvah. And I didn't make a hefsek in the mitzvah. So that's what the Mishnah Berurah says. The reason the shina makom is not a shinoi is because kevan shechazar v'lavash oisai talis atzmai. I'm continuing the same mitzvah. I'm not trying to add on to the mitzvah. That's okay, even though you made a shina makom. Fascinating. Continues the Chavetz Chaim. You might have a different kasha on this psak, says the Chavetz Chaim. Don't compare this to what we're going to learn Bezos Hashem Yisparach in Hilchas Tefillin in Siman Chaf Hey, Sif Yud Bey, Zayin Sham Mishnah Berurah. Dim Pasha Tefillin Adaita Likanis LaBeis HaKisei. Over there we're going to learn that if you took off your tefillin, al das that you're going to go to the Beis HaKisei, and then you're going to put the tefillin back on, have a hefsek al yidei. Over there we're going to learn that is a hefsek, and you have to make a new bracha on the tefillin. Why? So same case? Over here you're telling me, I took off the talis with das to put the talis right back on after I go to the Beis HaKisei. I don't need a new bracha. Even though shina malkum, everything else, you don't need a new bracha, according to the Ramah. But in Siman Chafei, by the exact same scenario by tefillin, you take off your tefillin, al das to go to the Beis HaKisei, come back and put them right back on, you have to make a new bracha. What's the difference between talis and tefillin? Explains the Mishnah Berurah, there's a big difference. Teshani Hasam, Hilchas Tefillin is different. Came into the Beis HaKisei also with tefillin. Because when you go into the Beis HaKisei, Bal Karchai, it's Azda Mitzvasai. Over there, the mitzvah is over. You know why? Because when you're in the Beis HaKisei, you're not allowed to wear tefillin. So you put yourself in a place where you cannot possibly wear tefillin. So you ended the mitzvah. Masha'en came betalis, but a talis is not the case. The Medina in a Asr. Really, al pi halacha, you could wear the talis in the Beis HaKisei. You wear your talis cotton in the Beis HaKisei, right? So you're allowed to wear tzitzis in the Beis HaKisei. Just a talis, the Mishnah Berurah says, Raktein and Nochain Lasis Kain. Since our talis gadol is a beged that's miyuchad l'tfila, it's not proper to wear a talis gadol in the Beis HaKisei. But technically you're allowed to. So you didn't go into a place where it's not possible for you to wear a talis. That's why by talis it's not a hefsek, in my tefillin it is. Vedan, you should know. Let's say when you took the talis gadol off, you didn't have das to put it right back on. Your das was, I'm taking it off for 2 hours. I'm going to put the talis gadol back on 2 hours from now. Even if now you change your mind and you put it right back on, so again, if you took off your talis gadol and you said, I'm taking it off, I'll put it on 2 hours from now. Then you say, what am I, crazy? I'm putting it right back on. You got to make a new berachah. And that's l'kulei alma. Va'afilu im nishar alav talis cotton. And that's true even if you're wearing a talis cotton. Why? The tek of shepshatay of the law mitzvah. Because if you took off your talis with intent that you're not putting it on again for another 2 hours, you ended the mitzvah. And even though you changed your mind and you put it right back on, you ended the mitzvah, buddy. You need a new bracha. And the same thing is the opposite. Let's say you took off the talis gadol with intent that you're going to put it right back on, but then then you got busy with 20 other things and you didn't come to put the talis back on for another 2 hours, and in the meantime you had a hesach hadas. Everybody would agree you need a new bracha. I feel nishar alav talis cotton, and that's true even if you're wearing a talis cotton. So halachah l'maisa, that's very negayah to people. You make a bracha in shul on your talis gadol. You put on your talis gadol. You got to take it off. You got to step outside. You got to use the facilities. Your das is, I'm taking it off, but I'm putting it right back on as soon as I come back. You don't make a new bracha, says the Ramah. You don't make a new bracha. Why? The explanation seems to be because since when you took it off, you had das that you're putting it right back on, that does not constitute that you took it off. It's as if you were continuously wearing it the whole time. Okay, tomorrow we will see a third shita that makes it a little bit more confusing. Thank you so much for joining me for limud HaTorah. Discuss of limud HaTorah should be making against Klal Yisrael. The Rabbi should send Yeshua's for voice, Parnasset, should do them all as a need. We should be zeichet to see the BS called Tzedek, B'mher v'yameinu, Amen. Be well.